Alright, so here we are again. I want to talk about Daredevil this time around. I really appreciate the support that I got on the Hulk video, my very first video. It was really cool, the views and stuff. And just to know that there's some interest, some viewership with that, it just makes me really happy. So let's continue on. I want to talk about one of my guilty pleasures, one of my favorite movies ever, especially when I was a kid, and even now, even when I rewatched it. We're going to talk about Daredevil. So Daredevil, 2003, directed by Mark Steven Johnson, starring Ben Affleck, Michael Clark Duncan, Colin Farrell, and Jennifer Garner.
I prowl the rooftops and alleyways at night, searching for justice. Blind justice. A guardian devil. I was 12 years old. I had lost my sight, but I got something back in return. My remaining 4 senses functioned with superhuman sharpness. I could hear a whisper a block away, but the most amazing of all was a kind of radar sense.
Daredevil came out in February 2003. I think it was Valentine's Day, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of an odd time for a superhero movie to come out, but then again, we've got Captain America: Brave New World coming out in February next year, so either way, what I'm saying is if it's a good movie, it's a good movie. It don't matter when it releases. Big disclaimer. I'm going to be talking about the director's cut only. I'm not going to be even mentioning the theatrical cut and all of that, because for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure some of you probably do, the director's cut is the far superior version of Daredevil. The theatrical cut had some things completely missing, some things completely changed that boded even worse for the characters and the overall story and theme. So we're going to be talking about the director's cut instead, and only the director's cut. So to start out with, I want to talk about the intro. And the introduction is really cool because it's one of those movies that starts at the end, and then you jump back and see how you got there. I've always thought that was a really cool concept, and several movies have done this, and it's been done well, it's been done not so well, and this one's cool. All the credits are visible, and then they turn to Braille, which I thought was always a cool detail. You keep painting up this dirty sidewalk on the street of New York, and it goes up into a church where you see blood start to run, which is already an interesting indicator. And then you get to the very top, and you get this really cool shot. It's the first shot you see of Daredevil on the big screen, and it's Matt hanging onto a cross, clutching a cross with blood dripping down. And the highlights of red you get with the night sky, with the moon and stuff, the blue sky, it's just such a cool shot. I've always loved that shot. Then from here we see Matt try to lower down, and he falls to the ground, and the father, he actually comes up, takes Matt's mask off, and holds a candle up to him, and that's where we start a narration with Ben Affleck talking about how his life flashed before his eyes, even for a blind man. And then we jump back to Matt being a kid and showing how he got his start. Older Matt, Ben Affleck, is still narrating this whole introduction scene. He's talking about how his dad was a washed-up fighter. He was kind of in his prime at another time in his life. And you get to see Jack sleeping on the couch, or sleeping in the recliner, and he's clearly past his prime.
My father was a boxer. A sports writer once wrote that he fought like the devil, and the name stuck. Jack, the Devil Murdoch, was a contender. But that was a long time ago.
And one really cool detail I've always liked is the fact that whenever you first see Jack Murdoch, you get a decent shot of his ear. And of course, it's a small detail, but it's something that that I missed before. And is that his ear is swollen, just like a real fighter would be. I always thought that was a really cool detail. Jack asked Matt who won on the fight on the TV.
Who won?
And Matt says, I think it's Creel or someone else. I can't remember the name. And then Jack said, I beat him once, you know. And Matt goes, I know, Dad.
Colin.
Yeah. I beat him, you know.
I know, Dad. TKO.
Which is already a first indicator of Jack being washed up, and in my mind, he's almost a little insecure, worried that his legacy will be forgotten. That's why he keeps reinforcing it. Either way, Matt helps Jack to the bed, and Jack asked Matt, he said, what's that on your face? Where Matt was bloodied up from those kids bullying him earlier. And he says this.
I told you I didn't want you fighting.
I tried to walk away, like you said.
But they kept giving me shit.
Don't curse. What kind of shit?
I always loved that little exchange between Matt and Jack. I always thought that was a really cool thing and kind of gives you a dynamic of what their relationship's like as father and son. And here, Matt also mentions that he's heard rumors, that he was bullied over rumors about his dad working for Fallon.
They said that you work for Fallon. That you're one of his guys now.
And Jack very quickly brushes this off and says he's been working double time at the docks on the weekends, and it kind of eases Matt.
Get over here, sit down. You think I'd be pulling double overtime down at the docks if I was working for Fallon? What are you, nuts?
But right after this, Jack tells Matt he doesn't want him to hit nothing but books.
You don't hit nothing but books, get me?
He said wants him to be a doctor or a lawyer, something that he says don't be like me. And that's a reoccurring theme with Jack in general. And we'll get back to that.
You be a doctor or a lawyer. Not like me.
Until the next day, Matt actually goes to the dock where his dad works. And he actually asks a dock worker if he's seen his dad, Jack Murdoch. The dock worker tells Matt that he hadn't worked there in months, which catches Matt off guard. I mean, you see the disappointment soak his face as he drops his report card into the water. And in my mind, that report card really, Matt went all that way to show his dad that report card, to show him that he was trying in school, that he was trying to be all that his dad wanted him to be. And in just an instant, Matt's drive for that was crushed. And then, to not make matters even better, Matt's on his way back, and he ends up stopping in an alleyway. And he actually sees his dad holding a guy up, threatening him physically. Jack also sees Matt, and Matt starts off in a sprint away from him. Matt runs back into that dockyard where there's a bunch of barrels of chemicals and other things. Forklifts are flying around, and Matt ends up running right in front of a forklift. The guy locks up the brake of the forklift, and one of the forks goes in and hits a barrel where the chemicals hit Matt in the face. And here's where we get that really cool, I mean, it's really cheesy, but we get that really cool visual of the chemicals altering Matt's nerves and going into his eyes and stuff. You get to see it. The sound effects are so cool. The visuals are so cool. I've always thought that was so cool, especially on this last rewatch. But after the accident, it goes quiet after Matt's vision leaves his body, and you get this really cool sound of the IV dropping, and it sounds like bombs dropping. And you get this sensory overload, which is exactly what Matt's experiencing as soon as he wakes up in the hospital. He's hearing stuff several blocks away, all kinds of noises, and he's getting a sense of his radar. He has no clue what to do, and I've always thought that was a really cool choice by Mark Steven Johnson and the rest of the team to depict Matt's disarray and really let us kind of soak and see exactly what he sees and make us understand the chaos that's going on around him. Jack enters the room, and you can see Matt's finally calmed down. I think he's got a handle. And Matt knows that he can't see anymore. And Jack just breaks down on him, says he's so sorry, and Matt basically forgives him.
I'm sorry, Matty. I'm so sorry.
And what's really cool is you get this narration again from Ben Affleck talking about how they made a promise to each other, that they would both strive to be better people, that they would strive to be the best as they could despite the circumstances, which I always thought was a really good message. And that little tidbit really starts to plant the seed of the theme of this movie, which is overcoming your fears and not just being the person that you are, but being the person that you can be. And right when this transitions into this montage of Matt and Jack, we get Hoobastank's Right Before Your Eyes.
When the door shuts, don't worry about me. It's not attention that I
We made each other a silent promise to never give up.
I've always loved this song. The soundtrack is amazing, which I will talk about later. But yeah, we get Hoobastank playing in the background as you see Jack and Matt start to work together and overcome their burdens. And then you actually get to see Matt get frustrated trying to read in Braille, and he ends up throwing the book at his father's little punching bag. And that's where I think he finally starts to hone in that he's got like a type of radar sense, even though he didn't in the hospital, which is weird. Anyways, but Matt comes up and he describes how he kind of figured out that he had like a radar sense, that his other four senses that he still had kicked into like overdrive. And then he starts to pound the punching bag, and you kind of get to see him. The next shot we get is him just upside down on a building. He's talking about how he trained his body to be, you know, better than what it was, which I couldn't help but laugh this time around, because I'm like, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me that just because his other four senses are super heightened, that he would just all of a sudden be able to flip and move like Daredevil does and fight, which he's not really fighting yet. But either way, the Netflix version of Daredevil, which if you haven't seen, what are you doing? You need to watch it. But if you have, you know that Stick actually started training Matt. He looked over Matt when Matt was real young and taught him how to fight and kind of hone his senses, which makes a lot more sense by the time we catch Matt as an adult in the show as Daredevil. But in this version, he just kind of just magically does it himself, and oh well. But with that said, I want to talk about the visuals, about like Matt's sense, because we get several shots throughout the movie of what Matt sees. And I always thought it was cool how Matt took his walking cane and hit that pole, and then you see the sound waves going down, and just the way his vision is blue and the whites, like it's really cool. Like I always liked how that looked, and it still looks cool now. But yeah, that's just a weird thing. Like, how did he learn how to do this? I don't know, but you know, he did, and whatever. But the next scene is even funnier. I have to talk about this. So the next scene is Matt and going down an alleyway, and he runs into the bullies, the same bullies from earlier in the movie, and they go round two. I mean, how messed up do you have to be to wake up, you'll call your buddy, but hey man, you know, you going to school? Or like, well, you know, after school we can go through the alleyway, hopefully we'll run into Murdoch, and you know, we'll just bully a blind kid. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, am I the only one that thinks this is really weird? Like, but they're like straight up bullying Matt. I mean, they're waving their hands in front of his eyes, and I mean, it's sick. Like, I mean, it's just crazy. But what's even better is Matt ends up taking his cane out and just starts slapping the crap out of this guy in the face, and ends up basically punking all of them, which is just really cool. Oh yeah, and also in this montage we got our Stan Lee cameo. And to end this montage, we pick up back with Jack getting ready for a fight. And Fallon is talking to Jack about how he wants him to take a fall. He wants him to lose because he's technically one of his guys. And Jack's like, I don't work for you anymore. You know, I don't work for you, Fallon. But it was really cool. Jack puts on his jacket, and we get to see him walk out. You know, he's kind of pumped himself up for the fight. And it's red. I mean, it's very symbolic of what Daredevil's costume eventually looks like, because his name was Jack the Devil Murdoch. That's what they called him. But what's really neat is whenever Jack meets Matt, Matt stands up and starts walking out behind his dad out the stage. Matt follows Jack through the hallway out to the fighting ring. And literally, Matt is following in Jack's footsteps. I mean, literally, and then like metaphorically, you know, if that wasn't obvious enough. Then you get snippets of the fight of Fallon watching Jack fight this other guy. And Jack, I think, is purposely taking more punches. And I think, I'm not very sure, but the way it frames it is whenever Jack gets hit and he falls to the ground, he's over there kind of listening. And I don't know if he like, it's almost like he hones in and hears Matt cheering him on, saying, you can do it, Dad, come on.
Never give up, remember?
And I think that gives Jack that extra courage that he didn't otherwise have to stand up to Fallon, stand up to the guys he's been working with, And he gets up and KOs this guy. I mean, he completely knocks him out. And Matt's really happy. He's cheering his dad on, and Jack gets the victory. And Fallon looks pretty not happy, obviously.
By way of knockout, Jack the Devil Murdoch!
This one was for you, Matty.
This transitions into Matt wearing Jack's boxing jacket.
I waited outside of the Olympic for my father. In some ways, I'm still waiting.
And he's over there, you know, practicing the fight. And that's when he starts to hear Jack down the alleyway get beaten up. I mean, he's getting pummeled. I mean, he's getting beat within an inch of his life. And you see him land on the pavement. He's all bloodied up. And you see the limo raise up really far. Someone gets out of the limo, and all you see is a huge shadow cover Jack. It's a really cool shot. And you see a fist come in the camera, which presumably kills Jack. And then you see a rose fall and hit his chest. This is an important shot, and if you don't already know why, we'll get to it later. We'll talk about it later, why this is important. These guys flee. You don't really get a good look of who it was that killed Jack. But Matt finally gets over there to his dad, and by that time it's too late. He says, "I can't see you, Dad. I can't see you."
I can't see you, Dad. I can't see you.
Because there's no sound, there's no nothing. Jack is gone, and Matt crutches that rose in his hand.
No one cared much about the death of a washed-up prize fighter. Nobody but me.
That's where you get Ben Affleck narrating that he made a promise to stop those evildoers, to avenge his father, to be more.
I would keep my promise. I would help those that others wouldn't. I would seek justice. One way or another.
Alright, so now we transition into present day, which is 2003 at this point. And we see Matt's face surrounded in water. It's kind of an odd shot, but then you see this, what looks like a metal coffin, open up where Matt comes out of the body of water, and you start to hear all these noises and everything flood him. So, it's kind of weird, but I guess, in a way, I guess it kind of, it makes you infer that the reason he sleeps in this is to basically seal off those senses, to basically turn the volume down, to get away from everything. Definitely makes sense, but I guess it's kind of a weird choice for Matt at this point in his life. Like, the dude's committed to be Daredevil, yet he wants to shut everybody out to get some sleep, which obviously we would all do that, but Matt, I don't know, it's kind of strange. But either way, he goes up to his stereo and he turns on the music and just cranks it. And this happens to be Hang On by Seether, which is also another song off the soundtrack. And I love this song. I always thought this song went really well with what's going on in this scene. Matt gets up, he gets ready for work. You get to see kind of his day-to-day, or somewhat of his routine. He's got braille tags on his suits, like how he knows which one is which. And he's getting ready. Then he goes over to these boxes, these little plastic cases with $5, $10 bills, $1 bills, and they're all labeled different. And he starts to fold his dollar bills in different ways, which I always thought was really cool. Like, maybe I just overlooked it when I was young, but it was kind of like a cool insight to like how blind people actually do function, because like it's one of those things that you never really think of. Like, you're like, man, how would blind people know what's in their wallet? You know, how would they know how to do this? I always thought it was neat this movie kind of puts those little details in there just for maybe the added realism of Matt being blind, despite all of his senses, which is a really cool touch. But I always think it's really cool how you get this nice shot of Matt's face looking up, almost like in Matt's tired, he's beaten, but yet he's getting up to go to work. And then you hear Seether, you hear the line of the song saying, I give my life away, there's nothing left to say, I gave my life away, I gave my life away, there's nothing left to say. And I always thought that fit really well in that little shot. But then you transition to Matt being in court as a lawyer, his day job.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to seek truth, to seek justice.
And right here we get introduced to Foggy Nelson, played by Jon Favreau, which I always thought was a great casting choice, and nobody really talks about it enough. We also see Quesada, who is standing trial for doing bad things to Matt and Foggy's client. Quesada gives his testimony, and you get to see the first little bit of Matt using his powers day to day.
Anything that happened after that was entirely consensual.
Are you aware that perjury is a crime, Mr. Quesada?
You can hear him hone in, and he hears the guy's heartbeat, knowing that he's lying, which is really cool. I've always thought that was really cool that Matt can incorporate that into his day job and have some extra insight that nobody else can. To end the courtroom scene, Matt comes up to Quesada. He says, "Mr. Quesada, for your sake."
Mr. Quesada, for your sake, I hope justice is found here today. Before justice finds you.
And that is just such a cool line. Like, I've always loved that. That's got to be one of the coolest Matt Murdoch lines, especially in live action. It's really cool. And after this, Matt and Foggy exit the court, and you get the first suit-up scene.
Come on, let's go get drunk.
Not tonight. We got work to do.
Now, call me crazy, but this suit-up scene has always made me think of the Schumacher Batman movies. And let me explain why. I'm talking about Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. You get this like really elaborate suit-up scene where he's zipping up his jacket and he's getting ready, he's getting his weaponry, his billy clubs. It really puts me in the mind of those 90s Schumacher Batman movies. And here's where we get a decent shot of Matt's suit. You get to see different shots of it before he leaps out of the apartment. And before we go there, I want to talk about the suit itself. The suit is, it's different. And let me explain. So when I was a kid and I saw this, my mom or dad, just like the Hulk, mom or dad bought me the director's cut. It's probably dad. My dad bought the director's cut of Daredevil, and I remember watching it over his shoulder and watching it myself quite a bit. And at the time, I'd never seen another version of Daredevil, so like in my mind, at that time, that was Daredevil. The leather jacket, you know, the somewhat strange mask that didn't connect like right here like Charlie Cox's does in the comic books. You know, at the time, I was like, that is Daredevil. With some hindsight now, with seeing some comic books and seeing Charlie Cox's version and just being more versed on Daredevil in general, this suit doesn't hold up as well for me anymore. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. But then again, you know, at this time in film, leather was the thing, starting with The Matrix. The Matrix really popularized the dark leather, which also bled into X-Men. That's why they had all these dark leather costumes, no yellow and blue.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
It's a miracle that we got Spider-Man looking the way we did in 2002. I mean, really think about it. Like, Spider-Man was really faithful, besides the Green Goblin having like military gear. But we all love it, so who cares?
Hold it right there! I surrender!
Oh boy.
But either way, I think that bled into Daredevil, him having a dark leather suit. And if you watch the behind the scenes, I mean, they're talking about how they spent like a lot, like even an hour just talking about the color red. And that people were, there were certain people who were afraid that his suit couldn't be red because they were afraid that he'd be confused with Spider-Man, which is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And luckily they fought against that, and he still has red on this suit. But this suit obviously is not functional. It's a leather jacket with leather pants. It's all leather. I mean, you know that it's not super flexible. It wouldn't be super breathable. He definitely couldn't be doing the acrobatics that Daredevil does in a full leather suit. But for the sake of the movie, I think it looks cool. It's definitely, it's got a cool sheen to it at night. It almost looks too dark, but you do get hints of red. But one thing I always loved was the billy clubs. I've always loved how he uses the billy clubs in this movie, how they're very functional. We don't ever get an explanation on where he got the suit where he got the billy clubs. Did he make them himself? Did someone else make them? We'll never know. And I always thought the red lenses in Matt's suit on his mask were really cool. And I love the shots we get of how they're tinted red and you can't see through them. They just always look cool. And here's where we get Matt leaping out of his apartment and him landing on like a window washing lift platform. And I always thought this was funny. Like, I know Matt's senses are dialed up to 11 or dialed up to 13, you know, but he's not surviving that fall onto that platform and then making the jump across to another building. I mean, he's just not, like, especially a brunt landing like that. I just find that funny. I don't know why I find that funny, because you know how acrobatic Daredevil is in the comic books. But him just falling and just like straight up just hitting that landing without breaking his legs or killing himself is beyond me. We get more acrobatics from Matt going across like a clothesline or whatever, and then you see him leap onto the bar roof. And here we get a transition inside the bar. This is where we see Quesada and these other guys and other bikers are in there. And presumably these bikers and the bartender, they actually know the girl who was in court that he, not supposedly, but he definitely did the bad things to, and they're not a fan of him. But also in the background here in the bar scene, we actually hear Nickelback learn the hard way. I love Nickelback. It's another cool song off the soundtrack. But what's really cool is we actually get like a fade, like a reverse pan out from Quesada and the rest of the guys, and the audio starts chopping up, and the audio mix, the voices get clear and the music goes down. All these other sounds start to fade out, and you eventually reveal that Matt is actually sitting up in the rafters listening. So all that audio that you heard drowning out and just the voices is almost like what Matt's hearing. It's his ability to hone out everything else and listen to what he's trying to listen to. And then here we are, people are like, is he real? You know, is that Daredevil? And Quesada's like, oh, you're real? He's like, what do you want? And then Matt's like, justice, and throws that billy club. And here's where we get this cool action scene in the bar, where lights are flashing, the music's chopped up like what's Matt's hearing. You get to see bullets flying in his vision, and it's a pretty cool fight scene. Eventually, Quesada crawls out of there and tries to run, and we get this really cool shot of Quesada running outside and falling onto he looks at a puddle of water, and he's like getting scared. He runs away. The camera pans down and you look inside that reflection in the water, and it's Matt standing on the rooftop. He jumps down and lands. Quesada falls down some stairs like an idiot, and then he looks up and you see Matt standing up at the top of the stairs really menacingly. I mean, he was giving Batman vibes before the dude was Batman. And then here we see Quesada hiding in the train station, or the subway station, and he takes his billy club and hits the metal handrail to kind of get a sense of where Quesada's at. And he does. He takes his billy club and gets around his neck, gets around his throat with the cable, and he's talking to him. And they have an altercation, and he ends up basically throwing Quesada back first onto the edge of the platform and down into the tracks, which always just like hurt me, and especially now that I'm older, like my back hurts watching that. And there Quesada is laying maybe paralyzed or like with his back broke on the tracks, and Matt is quick to say, hey, you see that light down there? That's not heaven, that's the C train. And the train runs over Quesada and cuts him in half, which gets me to my first like gripe about the movie and Matt's character, but also it's a start to Matt's character and the theme of this movie, which it sounds strange, but it'll all make sense by the time we get to the end of this, and I'm going to talk about what I'm talking about. And here we get Joe Paniolano as Ben Urich.
You're wasting your time, Urich. There's nothing to see here.
And we get to see Ben is very curious about Daredevil, and that the detective, he's just kind of, he's trying to blow off Nick and kind of shrug him off his shoulder, saying, Daredevil's not real, get a life, dude, you know, get away.
Keep running those stories, and we're gonna end up with a bunch of copycat vigilantes who are gonna get themselves killed.
Are you here to confirm that Daredevil is responsible for this, Detective?
Come on, Urich, stop busting my...
And then you see Ben just kind of look over to the side. He kind of gets a weird, like, curiosity about him. Takes his cigarette out and throws it down on the ground, and you see DD engulf in flames. And I always thought this was really funny because, you know, just imagining Matt after this guy literally got cut in half by a train. Matt's down there with lighter fluid or gasoline, down there, just down there with lighter fluid, drawing out DD.
Daredevil.
Daredevil? That's just a myth.
Oh, really?
Where did that come from?
Okay, if I'm gonna do this right, I'll need a good, let's say 20 square feet. That means I should knock the thugs out here, here, and here. Hey! Hey! Homeless! I'm putting my D's here. My big flamin' D's.
Hey, what are you doing? That gasoline's just gonna evaporate.
You've got a point. Give me that sterno.
Hey, I was gonna eat that. Hey.
I mean, like, it always cracks me up. Like, where did he get the gas? Where did he get the lighter fluid? Who knows? I have no clue. I just always thought that was really funny. But after all this, we actually get to see Matt finally make his way back home. The narration picks up again, and Matt's talking about how he doesn't know if he's making a difference or not.
Can one man make a difference? There are days when I believe, and others when I have lost all faith.
Which is a really cool insight to Matt's state of where he's at now. We don't know exactly how long he's been Daredevil, but in my mind, it kind of harkens back to Robert Pattinson's narration in The Batman. He was like, I don't know if I'm even making a difference.
Wish I could say I'm making a difference, but I don't know. Maybe it's beyond saving, but I have to try.
Which is a cool parallel, and it kind of it gets you in the state of mind that Matt's in right now, and you get to see Matt go into his apartment. He's got a message. He lets the message play on his answering machine, and it's some girl. And she's like, I don't know where you go, why you're emotionally distant. You know, you kind of get an idea that Matt's personal life and social life is basically just crumbling apart. He doesn't have one, despite how hard he tries. And you get to get a better look at Matt's gear, you know, where he holds his stuff at, and how cold his apartment looks, how empty it looks. And we also get Matt taking off his jacket, taking off his suit, and you get to see the sheer amount of scars on this guy's body. And him jumping into the shower, and him even pulling off a piece of his tooth. Matt gets out of the shower, and you get to see him taking Vicodin and all these other pills, I guess just to kill the pain. I mean, the guy's a pill popper. Like, he's really going through it right now. The dude's suffering. After all this, Matt finally makes his way back into his waterbed coffin thing. And as soon as he gets down, he starts to pick up on something happening, I'm assuming somewhere close to where his apartment is. And what's really neat is Matt looks over, and he basically sees this murder taking place. He gets to see this girl crawling across the floor, this murder going on. But even though Matt's hearing all this go down, he just stays in the water. He sees everything, even to her taking her last breath. He sees all of it happen, he hears it, and then he just proceeds to get back in his bed and shut everybody out. Which is a really weird, it's a really weird choice. Like, again, Matt's supposed to be a hero. I'm not saying just suit back up and go back out there, but I've always found it strange that he just sits there and listens to it and then just shuts down, which is a weird thing, but also could play to this theme and what Matt's going through right now. You know, even after all he did, he's still causing, even after everything Matt's been doing, he let a guy die in the substation, which I don't think is right, because, you know, in my opinion, Daredevil is like Batman. He has a no-kill rule, and the Netflix show definitely did a good job with this, but Matt let the guy die and doesn't seem to be very remorseful about it. But even when he hears the murder, it's almost like he's like, well, there's nothing I can do anyways. I'm all the way over here. And he hears this woman take her last breath, and he just proceeds to shut down. You know, maybe it's a play into him just feeling kind of out of control and just feeling like he's even more of a failure than he already feels like. And then here we also get, I don't know if it's like a dream sequence, and that's what I kind of took it as. It's like a dream sequence or a flash. Matt being a kid as an orphan. And it looks like he's laying in bed, and there's a nun that covers over him and is basically just there for him, and you see her necklace dangling and Matt takes a hold of it. And I always thought this was a hint or a nod to Matt's mom being a nun, obviously, but that's the only real mention or thing we see of her, hear of her in the entire movie. I don't know if this would have been explored into a Daredevil sequel, because we obviously never got one, but this was in here.
I can't stand to see the morning come.
Okay, now here we cut to the restaurant. We get to see Matt and Foggy sitting down, having some breakfast, having something to drink, and we get an insight of Matt and Foggy's working relationship and just their friendship in general.
Known as the Daredevil.
I don't know why you read that trash.
I've been hearing stories about this guy for years. There's got to be something to it.
What, like the alligators in the sewers?
There are alligators in the sewers. Don't ride my ass about the alligators. I got a friend in sanitation, okay? He's seen them.
Jon Favreau is awesome as Foggy. Like, he's a great choice. He's very funny, very charismatic, but he gives that real, like, he gives off a real sense that he cares about Matt. He cares about people, which is something that Foggy Nelson should be. I feel so ashamed that I can't think of the actor in the Netflix show and then the upcoming Disney Plus Daredevil Born Again, but that actor who played Foggy was incredible too. He was awesome. He is my favorite, but Jon Favreau also did a great job too. And I also love like the mentions of their clientele, how Matt is always seeking clientele who is innocent, but even though they may not have the most money, they may not have this or that. And Foggy is very just straight to the point, just like the Netflix version is. He says, hey, he says, yeah, they paid me in fish, they paid me in whatever. You know, we need some real clientele, we need some real money to come in. And then Matt gets defensive. He's like, what's wrong with our clients?
Your client, Mr. Lee, he made his first payment.
Oh, that's great. You should be very happy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He paid in fluke. Fluke is a fish, Matt. Did you know that? Because I sure as hell didn't.
Then Foggy says something really funny here.
Mr. Lee is a good man, and he doesn't have a lot of money, and he goes fishing on the weekends. So I guess that's...
Yeah, well, I go salsa dancing on the weekends, but I don't shake my ass to pay my phone bill, you know what I'm saying?
Pass the honey, please.
You know, we need some better clients. I'm tired of these pro bono cases.
What is your problem with our clients? We have good, honorable clients, decent people. What's your idea of better? To define better. Huh? What would be a better client?
Better means rich and guilty, okay? Oh. Remember when they taught us in law school how to create a moral vacuum so that you could represent people who aren't all necessarily innocent?
And then Foggy actually gets to asking Matt about his cut on his face, which he obviously got the night before his Daredevil. And Foggy makes a few funny jokes about a seeing-eye dog that Matt never wanted. And then Matt talks about being in Fight Club.
Okay, all I'm saying is I'm here for you as a friend. I mean, I hate to bring it up again, but I spent $3,000 on that seeing-eye dog.
I didn't ask you for the dog. I didn't want a dog.
Can I tell you something else? Seeing-eye dogs bond for life.
Mm-hmm.
Yours ran away. What does that tell you about how emotionally available you are?
But right here is where we get Jennifer Garner as Electra's entrance into the movie. Electra finds Matt. And this is not the first time this is going to be reoccurring through the movie. Electra finding Matt and Matt finding Electra. Matt is immediately infatuated with her. He can smell, he can sense her. And he's like, what does she look like? And Foggy's like, she's hideous. You know, it's just really funny. So Matt gets up to go over and look for some honey.
Some sort of congenital birth defect, but as your attorney in this matter, I advise you take no further action.
Matt starts talking to Electra, and they immediately have some really nice chemistry.
I was just looking for some honey.
Right in front of you.
Could you be a little bit more specific?
What are you...
Blind? Yeah.
I am so sorry.
You see Foggy take a sip of his drink and obviously spits it out, and it's really hilarious. And Electra's like, I assume he's a friend of yours, and Matt's like, I've actually never seen him before. And Electra leaves, where Matt is infatuated and he pursues her.
I didn't get your name.
I didn't give it.
Where you going?
I'm gonna file an appeal.
We have to be in the courthouse by noon. 12 o'clock, Matt.
I'll be there.
So here Matt is walking down the street, you know, tracking Electra, and he finally ends up at a playground. Why she's there, we don't know. But Matt is like, you know, all I want to do is get your name.
What do you want?
I just wanted to get your name. I didn't...
And she's like getting really defensive, you know, she's not really asking like, how did a blind man find me? You know, she's not asking any questions like that. But, you know, somehow she's like storms off.
Wait a second. Take it easy.
I don't like being touched.
Why don't you tell me what you do like, and we'll start there.
And here we get the infamous fight in the playground, which everybody's made a lot of fun of. It's really goofy. I can't defend it. It's really goofy, and it just is out of place. Like, and the fact that, like, there's all these kids just hanging out watching these two adults, one of them being a grown woman and the other one being a blind guy, fighting and, like, flipping over things. And I mean, it's really hilarious. I mean, it's so funny. And finally, Electra one-ups Matt and says, "I'm Electra Natchios."
My name's Electra Natchios.
Thanks. That's all I wanted to know.
And right after that, you see her limo pull up. I just gotta wonder, like, the limo driver and her bodyguard's like, "Electra, you done beating up the handicap today?" What are these guys doing? "Yeah, I gotta pick up Electra about 12 o'clock. She should be done beating up the handicapped again." Like, I just always thought that was funny.
I have to go.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. I don't want to get ass kicked again. I just want to know why you have to go.
My bodyguard is here.
Your bodyguard?
Dad can be a little overprotective.
Oh, Natchios. Right. As in Nicholas Natchios.
That's Dad.
And then Matt asks her, "How am I going to find you?" And she says,
"You won't. I'll find you."
And here we see that Matt is late for court, which is where we transition into the Kingpin. It's like one of the coolest intros to a villain in any comic book movie. I'll play a little bit of it right here. Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin. I always thought this was a really cool choice. Obviously, he's not the same skin color as the comic book character, but in this case, I don't think it matters because he embodies the character so well. Like, he's got the size, he's got the charisma. Like, the guy is menacing, but you really feel like he's smart. Like, you feel like he is ahead of the curve. You feel like he's powerful. You really get the Kingpin vibes off of him. And that's a good thing. I've always loved him as Kingpin. And right after we get this entrance, Kingpin's talking to Wesley.
What's wrong, Wesley?
Have you seen the papers today? Somebody's been talking.
Somebody always does.
He's talking about, like, in ancient Rome, how, like, they used to cut the tongues out of these guys and whatever.
You think that's horrible, don't you? Because you don't like the physical stuff. I do.
Kingpin just straight up just like KOs one guy and then just strangles this other guy. He definitely killed the one guy, but he killed both of them. This is also where you get introduced to Nicholas Natchios, which is Electra's father.
Your 11 o'clock is here.
Natchios. My dear old friend.
You find out that Electra's father has been working for Fisk and that he wants out. He wants to cut ties with Fisk and get out.
I'm getting out, Wilson. They're writing about the Kingpin. They're going back to the beginning. Oh, I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. I want to put all that behind me now. I want you to buy me out. So, what do you say?
Whereas Fisk replies,
"How's your daughter?"
Already implying that he's got a mischievous plan that is going to corner Nicholas into staying with him, or if he doesn't, he's got a plan to make him suffer. So here we transition to Matt being late to meet Foggy, and Foggy's asking details, and Matt's like, "Yeah, her name's Electra Natchios," and Foggy says,
Sounds like a Mexican appetizer.
It's Greek. Genius.
John Favreau's one-liners as Foggy they're just hilarious anyways. They end up finding Mr. Jackson.
Dante Jackson, ex-con from Queens, charged with the August 9th murder of Lisa Tazio, your friendly neighborhood prostitute. Bad news is Jackson was found passed out in an alley holding the murder weapon and enough THC in his lungs to get Staten Island high. Jackson says he can't remember what happened on the night of the murder, or for that matter, most of the 90s.
Mr. Jackson is now being charged for the murder of Lisa Tazio, which is the same murder that Matt overheard trying to go to bed in his apartment. Obviously, they ask him some questions, they introduce themselves, and as soon as Matt says, "Are you innocent?" Mr. Jackson's like, "Yeah." Matt doesn't miss a beat. He says, "I believe you." And Mr. Jackson's like, in surprise, he's like,
You do?
and Foggy's like,
You do?
like even Foggy's surprised too, because the evidence is so strong against this guy. I mean, it's hilarious.
Get yourself a defense.
And now we're finally introduced to Colin Farrell as Bullseye. And we already get a shot of him playing darts, not even looking, and he's just hitting bullseye after bullseye. And these guys are obviously getting annoyed with him. But here we also get Bullseye putting on his jacket, and whenever he flips his jacket like a cape, it makes like a rattlesnake noise. I just always thought that was funny, just like that intentional sound effect. Like, what does it mean? Well, we don't know, but it's not the last time you'll be hearing it. And this one guy is basically taunting him as he goes, as he takes his money. But right when he's about to leave, that guy says something, and you see him pull off his toboggan, and you get to see a Bullseye scar. Like, it's actually marked in his head, which has always just been a kind of an odd detail. It's kind of cool, but it's kind of cheesy. I don't know. It's just, we never really understand where it came from. We don't really know anything about Bullseye, but that's really not the point. He reaches, and everybody starts to get scared, thinking he's got like a gun or like a serious weapon. And he pulls out a paper clip, and everybody just starts dying laughing. You know, they're just like, look at this guy. Look at this dude. And then you see Bullseye, he straightens up this paper clip, and he immediately just like launches it into this guy's like throat. And then just out of nowhere, he like rapid fires like another like 10 into this guy's neck, and he just falls over and presumably dies. And everybody's just like in shock, and Bullseye just kind of gives the like goofiest grin and just leaves. I always thought that was so funny, just a really funny intro to a villain. I mean, just, yeah, it's only something Bullseye and Colin Farrell. I mean, it's just, yeah. But at this point, I started thinking, like, you know, out of all this time that Foggy and Matt have been working together, how has Foggy never picked up that Matt, you know, has probably got a really good track record of knowing who's innocent and who's not? And we get like a quick line about Matt's like, have I ever been wrong, you know? And Foggy said no. And it's really starting to aggravate me.
Hey, the guy's a 3-time loser. They found him a block away with a murder weapon in his hand.
Which makes the fact that he's innocent kind of interesting, wouldn't you say?
How can you be so sure?
Have I ever been wrong?
No, which is really starting to annoy me, by the way. Hey, come on, I got a blind guy here.
Use the crosswalk, asshole.
You know, that kind of answered that question as soon as it popped in my head. Then we get a cut back to Bullseye going to the airport to presumably fly to New York and get where he's going. And the music here and just Bullseye's aura. Going into the airport, it's just hilarious. Like, I get total Nicolas Cage from Face Off vibes when he's in the airport. Hallelujah, 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 I mean, dude's just got so much like swagger. I mean, like swagger in like a weird way, because nobody else pays him any mind, but he's over here just like $1 million. Like, it's hilarious. And he goes through a metal detector. He lays down a pen and a toothpick. That's all he has in his pockets. But then the metal detector goes off, and the guy is scanning his belt, which he doesn't pay any mind to. But then he gets to his mouth, and he spits out a paperclip, which is just kind of weird. And the guy takes it. He picks up his pen and his toothpick. How many paperclips does this guy have? Like, we saw him kill that one guy earlier with all those paper clips he had stuffed away somewhere, but the dude's always packing paper clips. We do know that. And then we also see this canine cowering, which is just so cheesy. I mean, it's funny. Okay, now we're back to Foggy and Matt again. And this time they are actually going to the apartment where this murder happened of Lisa Tazio.
All right, so this is it. Okay, now what?
You take a look around.
Look, Matt, I know you get this built-in bullshit detector, okay? But this time it's on the blink. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that Jackson is innocent.
He is innocent.
Okay, then why is somebody going through all the trouble of setting him up? Why the big cover-up in the death of a prostitute?
I don't know. Can't answer that. I gotta find out more about Lisa Tazio.
Well, you know, too bad we don't have a key. Matt, Matt, where you going?
Give me your pen.
Where's my pen? Must have been sick the day they taught that. Is that real estate law?
But you can see Matt's taking everything in. He's noticing things that obviously Foggy can't even pick up on.
What, you have a puppy?
Pneumonia.
So what?
Over blood. Something else. Cordite. Gunpowder. She was shot here and dragged outside to make it look like a random robbery.
But Matt's picking up on gunpowder and all these other things. And I always thought it was funny, like, Matt's bringing up all this stuff and Foggy isn't even questioning it. Like, not at all. Like, Matt's got this nearly impossible level of insight and Foggy just doesn't even bat an eye at it. But here, Matt is stroking his hands across the keyboard of the computer and then he feels on the desk right beside it.
Write this down. She wrote something here in a ballpoint pen. The imprint is still in the wood. M. 6 8.
And Foggy hilariously says,
There, I knew it. Her mother did it. Now, can we please go before we need attorneys too?
We come back to Bullseye. He's on his plane. He's going to New York. And he's sitting right beside, like, Grandma Ruth.
She eloped with this semi-colored fella from London. What's the word for that? Mulatto, yeah. Just let's say he had a little cream in his coffee. But he did very well for himself on the internet.
Some old woman with glasses, she's just talking away, like, she's just not shutting up.
But don't ask me how. No, you know, they did get me a computer for Christmas last year. But I didn't use it. I'm afraid. But who can afford to fly these days?
And he's getting so fed up with her. Eventually, he takes out like a peanut, and he aims it just right. It doesn't.
Nerve was acting. So I said,
"Oh, she's sleeping. Can I get you anything before we land?"
More peanuts, please.
The dude literally killed her with a peanut. I mean, it's it's just great. Like, it's really funny. Like, I've always thought that was hilarious. And then the flight attendant makes it even funnier.
God bless you. Pain in the ass.